Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is pretty simple. We take a stack of high-impact sources and turn them into knowledge you can use right away.
And today, we are taking a deep plunge into the work of a true master.
We're looking at former FBI lead hostage negotiator Chris Voss and his really essential book, Never Split the Difference.
This is the real deal. I mean, these aren't just academic theories cooked up in a lab.
Right.
They're behavioral tools that have been field tested in life or death situations.
The core idea being that these techniques, the ones designed to talk a criminal into releasing a hostage, are also incredibly effective for negotiating, say, a business merger.
Or even just your next contract. Anything, really.
Okay, so let's unpack this methodology.
Yeah.
It starts by fundamentally rejecting the traditional goal of negotiation.
It really does. The whole point is to move past compromise.
That kind of tepid middle ground where nobody's really happy.
Exactly, where both parties walk away a little disappointed. Instead, you're aiming for something much more valuable. You're aiming for genuine commitment.
And that shift requires tapping directly into behavioral science.
Voss argues that pretty much all human behavior in a negotiation is driven by these two deep primal urges. First, the need to feel safe and secure.
Yep.
And second, the absolute necessity of feeling in control. So success, it doesn't begin when you start talking. It begins when you listen.
When you listen intensely enough to show you actually have empathy.
That's it. Which means our whole idea of preparation has to change.
Right, because if you're trained for negotiation, you're usually just prepping your own arguments, your counterpoints.
Precisely. The goal of preparation isn't to load up your, rhetorical cannon.
Right.
It's to anticipate and uncover potential surprises, to test hypotheses about the other person. Your sole focus has to be on what they actually need.
And that need might not even be money.
Often it's not. It could be time or emotional validation or simply a sense of dignity. If they feel safe, they will talk. If they feel in control, they'll reveal what you need to know.
So, okay, the foundation is listening. But the delivery of that listening, it really starts with your tone of voice. He outlines 3 distinct voices we need in our toolbox.
That's right. Your default, your standard tone, should be what he calls the positive and playful tone.
So just easygoing, good-natured.
Yeah, and it's crucial to physically smile. Even if you're on the phone, that positive energy just leaks into your voice.
But the really strategic one, the one that can calm a whole room down, is the late-night DJ tone.
That one is so powerful. It's deployed specifically to combat defensiveness. It's calm, it's slow, and this is critical. You have to inflect your voice downward at the end of every sentence. That downward inflection, it communicates reassurance, trustworthiness. You use it selectively to make a point.
And the third one, the direct or assertive tone.
You use that one extremely sparingly, only when you absolutely have to.
So once we have the tone down, we move to the first major tool for creating immediate rapport, which he calls mirroring.
And it sounds almost too simple to be effective.
It really does.
It's deceptive. Mirroring is just the act of repeating the last 3 or maybe the 3 most critical words that your counterpart just said.
And why does that work?
Psychologically, we're just drawn to similarity. When you mirror someone, you're unconsciously signaling, I'm listening, I'm like you.
Let's walk through the exact mechanics, though, because it's more than just echoing them, right?
Right. The full process uses that tone we just talked about and the power of silence. So first, you use that calm, late-night DJ tone.
Okay.
Second, you soften it a bit by starting your sentence with something like, I'm sorry. It just earns you the benefit of the doubt. Third, you mirror those last few critical words.
And fourth?
This is the hardest part. You have to stay silent for at least 4 seconds.
So if a supplier says, we just can't process that order with those customizations right now.
You'd reply, using that slow tone, I'm sorry, customizations right now.
And then just wait.
And wait. You have to resist that urge to elaborate. That silence, it forces them to fill the void. And since you just repeated their own words, they usually explain the why, not just the what.
And this is the foundation for what Voss calls tactical empathy.
Yes.
That's an important distinction, isn't it? It's not just recognizing their perspective. It's a proactive strategy.
It's weaponized listening. That's a great way to put it. You're vocalizing that recognition and focusing on finding the emotional obstacles that are standing in the way of an agreement.
So you're looking for inconsistencies.
Exactly. You're analyzing their words, their tone, their body language. If they say, yeah, that sounds great, but their tone is tired or full of doubt, you've spotted a blockage you have to address.
And the main tool for addressing that blockage is the label. So what are the standard verbal starters we should be using?
The starters are critical because they're non-judgmental. You're making an observation, not a statement of fact. It seems like, it sounds like, or it looks like. So if you notice stress in their voice, you might say, it sounds like you're under a lot of pressure to hit this deadline.
And then you pause.
You have to pause. The other person will almost always jump in to either validate the emotion, correct you, or, and this is key, give you new information.
He suggests using a label about every fourth time you speak.
Yeah, it's a good rule of thumb to just maintain that emotional alignment.
Okay, so before we can get to a positive agreement, the book insists we have to neutralize the negative stuff first. This is the accusation audit.
Right?
How do you do that without sounding, hostile or defensive yourself?
Well, it's all about preemption. You imagine the absolute worst things the other person might be thinking or saying about you or your offer. The stuff they haven't said out loud yet.
And you say it first.
You say it first. You label their fears preemptively. You start a meeting by saying, you're probably going to think I haven't done my homework on this, or you might feel my opening proposal is insulting.
And why does verbalizing their worst fears work?
Psychologically, you've just taken all the ammo out of their gun. They can't accuse you of something you've already brought up and acknowledged. It clears that emotional barrier so you can focus on the content.
It builds a huge amount of trust.
A huge amount. And on the flip side of that, there's one very common phrase we have to completely eliminate from our vocabulary.
I understand.
Exactly. When someone is stressed or upset, saying, I understand, just sounds so dismissive. You haven't shown you understand, you've just asserted it.
You have to demonstrate it with mirroring and labeling, not just say the words.
That's it.
Now, let's pivot to something that feels really counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The power of no. We're always trained in sales to get to yes, but the book argues we should actually be seeking no.
We should be seeking no-oriented questions, for sure, because they preserve the other person's autonomy, their sense of control.
Because if you push for yes too early,
they get defensive. They feel cornered. A perfect example is starting a cold call with, is now a bad time to talk? Saying no to that question immediately makes them feel safe and in control. And now you have their full, committed attention.
and if we get a solid no during the actual negotiation, we don't treat that as a dead end.
Never! A no is often the start of the real negotiation. It's where you find out what the underlying concerns actually are.
So you follow up immediately with open-ended questions.
Right. What about this doesn't work for you? Or it seems there's something here that bothers you.
This brings us to the subtle difference between the three types of yes responses. Because only one of them actually means anything.
That's right. The first is the counterfeit. Yes. It's a lie. It's an escape route because they don't feel comfortable saying no.
Then there's the confirmation yes.
Which is just reflexive. It's a habit, it's politeness, but it carries zero weight. No action behind it.
And the one we're really after is the commitment. Yes. The one that leads to execution. But the actual gold standard of agreement isn't even yes.
No, it's the phrase, that's right.
That's right.
When someone says, that's right, it signifies a deep emotional alignment. They feel completely understood. But if they say, yes, you're right, that's actually a bad sign.
Why?
It often just means I agree with you to shut you up so we can move on. It creates distance.
So how do we systematically trigger that powerful, that's right response?
Through what he calls the summary. A summary is basically a paraphrase plus a label.
Okay, break that down.
You take everything they've told you, the facts, the feelings, their concerns, and you re-articulate the meaning of it in your own words. That's the paraphrase.
And then the label.
Then you validate the underlying emotions you heard them express. That's the labeling part. When they hear their own perspective articulated that perfectly and fairly by you, they get the clarity they need to say.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, moving from validation to actually getting things done, we need to make sure the agreement moves forward. This is where calibrated questions come in.
And they fundamentally shift control of the conversation to the listener. To you. You're controlling the conversation by asking questions that force the other person to problem solve for you. The crucial rule is to avoid any question that can be answered with a simple yes or a tiny piece of information.
So you avoid starting questions with words like can, is, are, do, or does.
Yes. Those let people off the hook. They don't have to really engage.
So we have to start every question with the power words, what or how.
Always. Think about that classic hostage negotiation example. Instead of telling someone you can't leave, which just triggers resistance,
You ask a calibrated question.
You ask, what do you hope to achieve by going? It forces them to articulate their own plan, which immediately reveals the flaws in their thinking.
And this transition from yes to how is where execution really lives.
Absolutely. Yes is nothing without how. These calibrated how questions are what guarantee execution. If you hear someone say, I'll try, or you're right.
Big red flags.
Huge. It usually means I plan to fail. You have to follow up. How will we make sure we're on track? Or what happens if we run into delays?
And we can use these to influence the people who aren't even in the room, the people behind the table.
That's essential for finding hidden constraints. You ask questions like, how on board are the people who aren't on this call?
Or what concerns might your colleagues see as the main challenges here?
Yes, and that forces them to think through their own internal logistics and reveal potential weaknesses you need to know about.
Let's quickly touch on the 7-38-55 rule. 7% content, 38% tone, 55% body language.
It just reinforces how much you miss without face-to-face communication. You have to be able to spot that incongruity.
The verbal yes with the hesitant body language.
And when you spot it, you have to use a label. I heard you say yes, but it seems like there is a slight pause in your voice there. You're using empathy to drill down.
And to really lock down implementation, we use the rule of 3. What's that process?
It's about getting them to commit 3 distinct times. First, you give the initial, maybe low-stakes agreement, a simple yes. Second, you follow up with your summary to get that emotional alignment that's...
And third.
Third, you secure the final commitment with a calibrated how or what question about implementation. How do you see this timeline working? If they affirm it 3 different ways, the chances of follow-through go way up.
Let's talk about bending their reality a bit, using anchoring and loss aversion.
First step is setting an extreme anchor. Before you deliver your actual reasonable offer, you set a kind of ridiculous anchor, high or low. It just makes your real number seem so much more palatable by comparison.
And this is where using odd, precise numbers comes in.
Yes, a round number like $20,000 just signals it's an arbitrary starting point. A precise number like $19,643.
It sounds like you've done your homework.
Exactly. It suggests it's based on specific calculations, and it discourages an immediate, aggressive counteroffer.
And then we activate loss aversion. Why is avoiding a loss so much more powerful than realizing a gain?
Well, the behavioral research is pretty clear. The pain of losing something is about twice as powerful psychologically as the pleasure of gaining the equivalent thing.
So you have to frame the deal so they see there's something concrete to lose by not acting.
You have to. And if money is the only barrier, you pivot. Look for non-monetary things. Things that are cheap for you to give but valuable for them to get. It keeps the momentum going.
To wrap up the toolbox, we have to know who we're talking to. Let's start with how to spot liars and decision makers.
When trying to spot a liar, watch their language. They tend to use more complex sentences and, this is the big one, distancing pronouns. Him, her, it, they.
They rarely use I.
Almost never. They're trying to create psychological distance from the lie.
And spotting the actual decision maker.
Same thing. Watch the pronouns. If the person keeps saying I, me, my, they're often less important in the final decision. They're likely an intermediary. If they constantly use we, they, or them, it's a huge sign the real decision maker is someone else.
Okay, now for the 3 main negotiator types. The analyst sounds the most cautious.
The analyst is methodical. They hate surprises. Their whole self-image is tied to minimizing mistakes. So for them, time equals preparation.
So you have to give them space.
Lots of space. Their preferred tools are data and labels, so they can compare their analysis to yours. For an analyst, silence is a gift. It's time to think. Don't rush to fill it.
Next up, the accommodator.
The accommodator is all about the relationship. They're sociable, optimistic, but the big risk is they'll overpromise just to keep everyone happy.
For them, time equals relationship.
Right. And because they might not say no, you have to watch their tone and body language for those inconsistencies. Your main tools are what and how calibrated questions focused on implementation.
And finally, the assertive type.
The assertive negotiator loves to win. For them, time is money, period. They need to feel heard first or they won't listen to a single thing you say.
So let them vent?
Let them vent, then pivot using labels, summaries, and calibrated questions to steer them toward a solution. But be careful with reciprocity. If you offer a concession, they will almost always demand more.
And through all of this, we're always hunting for black swans.
Always. Those are the hidden, critical pieces of information that can completely change the negotiation. They usually surface when the other side is doing something that just doesn't make logical sense.
When someone's acting crazy, as he puts it.
Yeah. And he says it usually means one of three things. They're either ill-informed, they're constrained, meaning they don't actually have the power to make the deal, or they have other interests driving their behavior.
So you always have to ask, why are they communicating what they're communicating right now?
That's the ultimate question.
That is a tremendously detailed guide. We started with that psychological foundation, the need for safety and control, and moved through the mechanics of empathy, mirroring, and labeling.
And we finish with the tools for execution, those calibrated questions, and the search for that definitive, that's right.
It seems like becoming a master negotiator is like any complex skill.
It is. It takes deep practice and, maybe most importantly, learning to embrace failure. As long as you're failing in new ways, you're learning.
So, a final provocative thought to leave us with.
Consider the power of hopes and dreams.
That shifts the perspective entirely.
It does. If you're struggling, just take a moment and try to visualize what your counterpart truly wants out of life, something much bigger than just this single deal. If you can show a genuine passion for their aspirations and then present a plan for getting them there, they'll trust you completely.
We all want a roadmap to joy.
We do. Be courageous enough to draw it, and others will follow.
If you enjoyed this analysis, like, share, and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more shortcuts to being well-informed.